guys, it is Aoife from Fred BC Died Laughing, and I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So I got 4 books read this week, 3 physical books and 1 audiobook, and I'm going to tell you all about them now. And I'm actually pretty happy with my reading this week because all of the physical books I read were over 400 pages, one of them was 500 pages, so I got loads read, which I'm really happy about. So the first book I read, I don't actually want to talk about too much here because I am going to do a full video review of this in a few weeks, and that is A Time of Dread by John Gwynne. If anyone has been following my channel for a while, you guys know that I am a huge fan of the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne, which is a high fantasy series. There's 4 books in it, and I just have raved about this series, and this is actually a spin-off follow-up series. So this is the Blood and Bone series, and it's called obviously A Time for Dread. This is the first book. I'm not actually sure how many books are in this one, but this follows on over 100 years after the final kind of scenes of Faithful and the Fallen. So we're kind of finding out what has happened in the land since the last time we've been there, how it's kind of progressed, how history looks at what we kind of witnessed with the characters in The Faithful and the Fallen, how all of that is looked at in history in different parts of the world, parts of the Banished Lands, and I just absolutely love this one. This one follows a whole range of different characters, kind of just what John Gwynne excels at, which is just having a whole cast of amazing characters. I love the relationships between all the characters in this. One thing I will say is that there was a character in this who was like a big, strong, like burly guy, not a trained warrior, but like is really able to handle himself. He's described as very, very tall and very strong, and whenever I think of most of the characters in this, I always think of like Vikings. So in my mind, he's just like this big kind of like Viking guy. His name is Drem, and he is about 21, I think, and he actually suffers from a little bit of anxiety in this, and not like really, really bad anxiety, but more in a way where you see that his dad like really cares for him and knows how to kind of like soothe him when he's a little bit anxious about things. And he a few times during the book we see him take his pulse, and it's a way he does to calm himself down and kind of center himself when he is feeling very anxious or really unsure in a situation. He will actually take his pulse and start counting and just calm himself down, and I just love the fact that that was included in this, because when you think of a lot of like I actually can't think of any other kind of high fantasy book I've read where it's like really tough, manly characters where they have suffered from something like that, and yeah, I just really liked that was included, and I loved Drem, and I loved his relationship with his dad Olin, and I'm going to talk a lot more about this when I do a video review, but I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. John Gwynne just pulls it out of the water every time for me. I just absolutely love his writing. I love his world building. I love his characters, and I want the next one right now, and this hasn't even come out yet. This isn't out until like January next year, so I was really lucky to get a proof copy of this. I actually forgot to mention it, I did get a copy of this from Pan Macmillan in exchange for an honest review, and I'm just so happy I did, because this has been my most highly anticipated book of this year since I found out it was coming out a few months ago, and yeah, I loved it. The next book I read was Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. This is a book that I actually didn't know it was a book until I saw the trailer for the TV show, which is on Netflix at the moment. I have not watched it yet because I wanted to read the book first when I found out it was a book, and this is like a novelisation of the true story of this woman called Grace Marks in Canada. She was born in Ireland, and then she emigrated to Canada when she was about 13 or 14, and then when she was 16 she was jailed for life for being an accomplice to murder when her employer and her employer's housekeeper were both brutally murdered. This is like, she's already about in her 30s in this, so she's already been in jail for quite a long time, and there's this doctor who is trying to study kind of almost like mental illness, I think, and he basically wants her account of everything that happened, and we're kind of getting her story from the time she was young to her family's emigration to Canada. And he's kind of trying to see, like, there seems to be kind of some gaps in her memory, and he's trying to see if he can recover them, and if they can be linked to maybe, is she innocent, is she not innocent, and we really can't figure out if she is or if she isn't innocent. And it's kind of like, it's kind of almost like the story is there, and it's kind of like you as a reader kind of has to make up your own mind whether you think she's innocent. I have no idea. I also like to point out this is like the ugliest book cover ever. I hate this book cover so much, it creeps me out. But yeah, I gave this a like 3 out of 5 stars. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because there was parts, like, it's quite long. It's over 500 pages long. It is, yeah, it's like 520 pages, and it seemed to take me a while to get through. I couldn't say I really enjoyed my reading of it. I was just kind of, there was one point where I was just reading it to finish it, and I wasn't reading it to really find out what happened, because after a while I kind of realised that we weren't really going to find out what happened properly. It was kind of more like, it's kind of, as I said, it kind of leaves it up to the reader to decide what they think. But I do think that just the whole story was interesting in itself, and I just really like the fact that literally every Margaret Atwood book I've read has been completely different. Like, she really just changes up her style and her way of writing with every single book, and I just think that's really impressive. So yeah, a 3 out of 5 stars. Not the best book ever, but not the worst either, and I would say if you're interested in this, to give it a go. The next book I read was The Trip of a Lifetime by Monica McInerney. I did actually get this book in exchange for an honest review from Penguin Ireland, and I did have a physical copy, but I've left it up in my family's house in Donegal in our little library there now that I've finished it, just if anyone else is visiting up there, if they want to read it, or if my dad is up the next time if he wants to read it, because it's definitely one of those kind of books you can read up in, like, when you're just snuggled up in the country with a rainy day outside, which is what I did. I read a lot of this on Cozy Reading Night on Friday, which was hosted by Lauren from Lauren and the Books, and this is a book which is a kind of a spin-off book to another book by Monica McInerney, which I've read, which is called The Alphabet Sisters, and it is about this woman called Lola Quinlan. She's 85, and she basically left Ireland when she was in her early 20s, and she hasn't been to Ireland in over 60 years, and she suddenly decides that she wants to go back to Ireland, and she kind of plans this trip with her granddaughter and her great-granddaughter to go back to Ireland, but there are still, like, a lot of secrets about, like, Lola's past, about Lola's marriage when she was younger, about why she came to Australia in the first place, and she hasn't really, like, told her family everything. They kind of know bits and pieces, but they don't really know everything, and she really kind of struggles with a lot of stuff when she gets to Ireland, kind of stuff, the truth kind of hitting her, and memories and stuff like that, and we see her kind of struggle a little bit, and in that case this book wasn't quite as light-hearted in parts as I thought it was going to be. So there was parts of it where it actually got a little bit serious, and it got a little bit almost down in parts, but I think it was kind of showing true life as well, in a way, I guess, that not everything can be happy-go-lucky all the time, that this woman did have some painful memories that she did have to confront when she got back to Ireland. I really just enjoyed seeing her kind of her reactions and her family's reactions to being in Ireland, and the characters in this, I already know some of the characters in this, obviously, from reading The Alphabet Sisters, but as I said, you don't need to read The Alphabet Sisters to read this one. They can be read separately, but it did just add an extra bit of enjoyment for me, already knowing the characters, already knowing kind of what they were like, and just some of the ditzy stuff that some of them did. Like, there's one sister who's, like, really ditzy, the other one is a little bit more serious, and the granny is just absolutely mad, and I just loved seeing all of that. Though the ditzy sister did really get my nerves at parts, just because she's so ditzy, but it was still, like, it was an enjoyable kind of get my nerves, where you're just like, what is she going to do next, what is she going to come out with next, so that was enjoyable. One part of this that I didn't quite enjoy, and that is there's a strained relationship between Lola, who's the grandmother, and her daughter-in-law, so her son's wife, and it's been very frosty. It's very frosty in The Alphabet Sisters. We kind of learned that they didn't really get like each other. They're very different personalities, and that continued in this one. And near the end, there's a bit between the granddaughter Beth and her mom, who is Lola's daughter-in-law. And I don't know, there was this conversation where Beth had with her mum, who's called Geraldine, about Lola, and it was still really nasty, and just some of the stuff she said, I was just like, whoa, like, calm down. You're talking about an 85-year-old woman who isn't going to be around in the world a lot longer. No idea how long your husband or your daughters or your granddaughter have with this woman. Like, can you not just be a little bit more pleasant? And yeah, I just really, like, there's no bit in the book where you as a reader warms up to the mother, because she's just not a very nice person, and I just felt like the bit at the end between Geraldine and Beth about Lola, I don't think it really needs to be in there, because it left me feeling a little bit like a bad taste in my mouth over just the whole exchange. I was just kind of like this could have been better off without it, in a way. I just personally just didn't like that. It just left me feeling a bit like, okay. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars overall, and I did quite enjoy it. And the last book I read was an audiobook, and that was The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapena, and I read this literally almost an entire day. I've never read an audiobook in almost an entire day. I listened to this on my way home from Donegal, so from Donegal to Dublin, which is about 4 hours. I listened to this in the car. I've never listened to an audiobook in the car before. This is my first time listening to it on a journey, like while I was driving. And it was a really nice experience for me being able to do that, and just really like getting into the story and not wanting to get out of the car even after being in the car for 4.5 hours, and being absolutely sick of driving. I had like an hour left and I did not want to I didn't want to get out of the car. I wanted to keep going, and I finished it this morning on my way back from my horse riding lesson. I stuck it on again in the car and I managed to finish the last little bit, and I really enjoyed this. This is a thriller novel, and it's about this couple called Anne and Marco, and they go to dinner in their next door neighbour's house, which like, you know, is joined onto their house, and they do go to this dinner, and they leave their 6-month-old baby next door on her own, but they have like a baby monitor so they can like make sure she's okay. They can hear her. They go and check her every half an hour, but then when they go home at the end of the night, she's not there and the baby has been taken. So we kind of get involved in the investigation for the baby, and we're kind of finding the truth about what has happened. Like, did one of them hurt her? Is this like, you know, did someone really just walk into the house and take her? Was it premeditated? Like, where the hell is the baby? And there's just all these unanswered questions. There's like some bits where you're not sure if there's an unreliable narrator, and I really enjoyed this. I just thought that the twists and turns in it were really good. Like, there was one part where one thing was revealed about halfway through, and as I said, I was driving, and at first it didn't like click with me what I had just heard, and then I went, wait, what did you just say, what? And it just like, I was like, oh my god, what is going on? And I loved that. I love having those reactions to these kind of books, especially when you're listening to an audiobook and you do really think like, have I misheard that? And you have to almost go back to check if you did hear it right. And I just love that. I love when that happens. And I really enjoyed the detective in this, because like the lead detective looking into the case of the missing baby, because I feel like a lot of the time in thrillers and mysteries and stuff, we get like a detective who is like way too personally involved in the investigation, and like, you know, like they could be like, you know, they're looking at a case of a missing baby and oh my god, it turns out that a kid they knew when they were growing up went missing, or they had like a baby that died when it was young, so they're like really personally invested in this case. And while sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. And I like the fact that this was just a detective on the job doing the case, like no kind of personal things, like he was just doing his job, and I just really enjoyed that, the fact that he was there doing his job. And yeah, I just really love the twists and turns. As I said, I loved finding out what happened, and I gave this a really strong 4 out of 5 stars. That's everything I read this week. Please let me know what you guys have read, if you've read any of the books I did, and I will see you guys again next time. So bye.